Welcome to the Win, Make, Give podcast. Chad Hyams here, Bob Stewart over there. Bob, how you doing today?
I'm glad you abandoned that ridiculous thing that you were doing for a little while, like at the beginning.
Bob, I couldn't do it today if I had attempted it the way I feel.
You told me you're a little bit under the weather. I hear you're coughing over there. Like, are you okay? Or
no, I don't think so. My lovely wife had bronchitis and decided she wanted to share. So if you were going to ask a coach / podcast host, what's the one illness you don't want? It's going to be bronchitis because you're going to hear it in my voice during today's. So Bob might get an extra question or two asked today as I fall over coughing and hacking things up. If you don't hear from the audience, I'll be okay.
Find that mute button when you do that. Nobody wants to hear you just hacking up a lung, man.
I'm looking. That's why I'm running away from the microphone.
Find it. You don't. Once you find it, you don't have to look for it again. Like, it's not moving on your computer, is it? Or
no, it's right.
No, it's good.
Okay. So Bob, you might get to.
Well, we don't need you anyway. We have somebody really smart.
Thank goodness.
I'm going to try to get him to sing. I think he might have some pipes. I don't know. He's warming them up. I see him warming them up. Let's bring our guest on. If you're not, Chad, I'll let you introduce if you're not hacking up a lung. Are you good?
I'm okay. I'm okay right now. It's if I go too long in a sentence without taking a breath. You're right, Bob. We're going to talk leadership today. See, this is how much I wanted to have this interview.
Committed.
I didn't just say, Bob, take care of this. I didn't reschedule. No, I'm here because I wanted to be a part of this and to hear from this. We're not going to read his bio. He doesn't know we're not going to read his bio. We're going to make him introduce himself. We just want to bring to the call, and we're going to use your full name the first time, Dr. Carl DuPont, right? DuPont, to those of you here in the United States of America, North America, as you might say it. Carl, welcome to the Win, Make, Give podcast.
Thank you so much, Chad. Thank you, Bob. And in introducing myself, I can talk about the thing that I am most passionate about in life, and that's the voice. And Chad, you are demonstrating right now just how important, but just how fragile our voices are. And we often don't think about this main way that we communicate with each other. We think about the words, but we don't actually think about the vessel, the way that we can compress the sound waves to convey what's in our hearts to other people's hearts. And I think it is so important. And I think it is where communication begins and how our connection can really flourish.
I'm loving that because I know some of the stuff we're going to cover today, folks. No, don't worry. We're not here to sing. Yet, Carl,
we don't want that. I mean, we want Carl. I kind of want to hear Carl, but not you.
So my philosophy is that your voice is perfect. Your use can be improved. So I think everybody should sing. And I think the world, don't you agree? Don't you think the world would be a better place if everybody sang every day?
Hey, you know what?
I want to share a world of Coke also. I mean, isn't that a song we should all be singing then, right?
Carl, I have two young boys. They're 8 and 9. And I never in my life, it extends beyond my boys. Never in my life have I sang out loud and not felt good. You know what I'm saying? Like, never once ever have I been like, let's sing this song. And it is sad and gross. And I walk out of there feeling like, wow, I wish I wouldn't have done that. Like, no, even though I have a shitty singing voice, like the reality is every time I've ever used it, like you feel good. There's endorphins that come about. You're like, it's impossible to not feel good using your voice in that capacity.
Yeah, exactly. So we have this whole physiological response. The nerve that innervates the vocal folds is the recurrent laryngeal nerve. It goes down from our cranium. It's a cranial nerve. Goes down, innervates our guts and stuff, all the thing down there. And then comes back up, wraps around our heart before it comes and innervates the vocal folds. So everything you've said or sung has gone through your heart first, and it's been this jolt of energy through your whole body. And that's why you feel great.
I want to cry right now. Like that, I'm like, that just summed up everything. When I speak, it comes from the gut, it comes from the heart before it comes out from my brain, and it comes right out.
Yeah. Okay. I think that is so amazing and fascinating.
My wife always gives me a hard time. I'm kind of a Jeopardy nerd. Like, I watch Jeopardy and she's like, how do you know that? I'm like, I don't know. I just heard it one time and it's stuck in there. I don't think I've ever in my life heard about the nerve that, like, you said this is the nerve that activates your vocal cords?
Yeah, it's called the recurrent laryngeal nerve, and it stems from the vagus nerve. And the vagus nerve is, of course, our soul nerve.
Yes. All right. So we're talking with performance and leadership expert Carl here, who happens to also know everything there is to know about the voice. Carl, you've got to we're going to transition into the leadership piece of this, the book and the conversation. Yet, yes, I'm completely fascinated. How does somebody who's listed as a performance and leadership expert come to know so much about and understand the power of the voice the way that you do?
Well, it comes from trial and error. You know, I have a friend who says, nobody has ever learned anything the easy way. And so by failing multiple times on multiple continents, in multiple languages, in multiple venues, I've just been on this rocky road of life and have found lessons from the failures and have found pathways around and over and through when doors have been closed. And so right now I teach at the Carey Business School in the executive education department. But when I tell my opera singing friends that I'm teaching at the business school, they're always like, what? What are you doing over there? How did you end up over there? And it's because I started taking courses thinking that I was moving towards an administrative position. And when I got into the courses, nobody else was talking. And as you can tell, I love to talk. I love to interact. So next thing I know, they're asking me if I actually want to teach a course at the business school. And it was popular. And so they asked me if I wanted to teach more. And then it's just started this snowball effect that I'm able to share from my life experiences, which are unique in a way, and see the combination and how they align with the business world and with leadership and with creativity, really. Because I think in addition to thinking that your voice is perfect, your use can be improved, I think that we are all artists. And I think when we think about what we do as artistry, we are able to unlock more capability and more possibility.
Carl, did you hear opera singer in there? Like, did you hear?
Yeah, opera singer.
I did the research before. That's why I started with, like, I want to hear this guy's pipes. You know, like, let's belt one out. He's got to be the best singer we've ever had on the. You know, we've had a lot of guests here, but I don't think we've ever had an opera singer.
Well, I do have. Yeah. So I was trained as an opera singer. I moved over to Germany. I was working at an opera house there. Moved back to the States. I was singing all around New York City, Carnegie Hall, Kennedy Center, Mexico City, El Palacio de Bellas Artes. I did La Boheme just a couple of months ago with Opera Saratoga. So I still try to maintain my pipes. I have recordings out there. I released an album in the last year in August. And one of the songs on there, Caro mio ben.
Ooh, I'm getting chills.
Just happened to be a song that Beyonce put on her album a couple of months earlier. And I'm not saying she's trying to compete with me. I'm just saying it seems like quite the coincidence.
Who has more downloads of that song?
Exactly. We'll never know.
Right.
Okay, so I have this, like, fundamental belief, I mean, it comes up from time to time on the podcast, that the things that we end up passionate about in life were likely sparked, like, out of our childhood somewhere. Like, I show up in my day-to-day job. I'm super passionate about delivering the dream of home ownership and what home ownership can mean for a family. And because I was a kid that my mom was divorced, and I lived in a lot of different houses, none of which we owned. And finally we would come on to own a house, and it really changed my perspective. Is there something, like, from your, why were you so interested in exploring your voice? Was there something that sparked that as a young child?
So there was a crossing guard at the elementary school where my mom taught. And my mom would go park at the school, then walk me over to the preschool and drop me off. And this crossing guard said to my mom, you know, it's weird that he's not talking yet. I was about 3 at this time. And that sparked my mom to say, oh, yeah, I guess it is weird that I have a 3-year-old that I haven't heard say a word. So she went to take me to get some tests done. And all the doctors said, well, he's just not bright. You just have, basically, they're like, you just have a dumb kid. That's why he's not talking yet. Sometimes it just takes longer. But my mom persisted. And it turns out I was deaf. So sometimes babies are born and the fluid stays in the ear canal instead of drying out. So I wasn't talking because I wasn't
You
hearing.
hadn't heard anything. Yeah.
I hadn't heard anything. And it was tricky because I had learned to read lips. So my first language was lip reading. And I could respond in the sense of I could do what I was told to do, but I couldn't verbalize and I couldn't hear anything. So it wasn't until my mom went home and she turned around and she called my name and I didn't come, where she realized I was actually, in fact, deaf. So through a long period of trying to find the right doctor and then trying to afford it, there was a doctor who volunteered his services and performed the surgery, which removed the fluid from my inner ear canals. And then at the age of around 4, on the way home from the hospital, I started talking and I haven't stopped since. And I think it was in that crucial time of life when your brain is developing, and I wanted so much to be a part of the world and to participate with my voice, but I wasn't able to, and didn't even know that I had this thing inside, that I've been spending the last 40 years trying to make up for those first 3.
My God.
Bob, this is...
Well, it feels like this was scripted. Like I think if this is the very first time you've ever heard our podcast, like that felt scripted. Like we gave Carl the questions. That almost sounds like Carl gave us the question to ask. I swear to you guys, and Carl can be I've never met Carl before. I just asked him that question because Chad knows I'm kind of fascinated by the traumas we face in our childhood and who they turn us into. Holy shit.
Yeah.
That might be the best one I've heard.
I was just going to say, I just recorded that TED Talk that we've talked about. The first speaker was deaf, and she said it wasn't until she was 4.5 years old that her family even figured out she was deaf. Yeah. Because she had just faked her way through it, laughing when other people laughed, nodding her head, because she had the same thing. And I didn't realize how common it was. My daughter, when she was born, they had to put tubes in her ears to help drain the fluid. Yeah. When she was like 4 or 5 months old or something.
They do that. I mean, I'm thinking back now. They do that test like I think before you can even leave the hospital now, they do that particular test to make sure that that's not the case.
Oh, well, it's good that they have that test now.
Now, yeah. Thanks a lot, medicine.
Do you know, Carl, this had nothing to do with it. Is there a percentage? Like, have you ever done the research to find out that like 10% of all kids, that's what it actually was?
No, I don't know. I don't know. And I've never met anybody else who has been in that situation. And honestly, I don't talk about it often because it is so personal. And
hey, thanks for sharing it. But I'm a firm believer that like the things we become passionate about, something sparked that early, right? Yeah. And gosh, I've never heard a better.
Good question, Bob. Good question. We'll finally give you question of the day. It's been many weeks since you've had that opportunity.
He started with the opera, which gave me the goosebumps. Then he gives us that one. Like I'm on the verge of tears over here, Chad. He got you earlier too. Holy cow, Carl. All right.
Just understand this. Bob cries at commercials, right? That's not a thing for Bob.
That doesn't mean that the things causing it aren't impactful and powerful, Chad. Like don't try
all right.
Don't try to cut my voice off.
Before I move off this topic for your sake, Carl, can you give us that one sentence you said again? You've used it a few times already about our voice and the use of our voice. I think that is a line I want to print and put up on my wall.
I meet so many people who tell me, oh, I stopped singing because in elementary school, the chorus teacher told me just to move my mouth and not to sing. Or they'll say, well, my partner says my voice is horrible and asks me not to sing when I'm driving down the road. And My philosophy is your voice is perfect. Your use could be improved. I teach voice lessons. I do executive coaching, and I've never found someone with a broken voice. It is a voice that has unique qualities, just like our thumbprints. And our voices are unique as our thumbprints. They can be used to identify us and also connect us to those around us. Because unlike our thumbprints, we sound sometimes like somebody else in the house. Maybe when you were growing up, when you'd pick up the phone, somebody might have thought you were your cousin or your brother or your sister or your father or your mother. And so I always like to start from the place of your voice is perfect. And from there, we can start to talk about how your use can be improved.
I love that.
I always joke that I can't listen to myself on recording because I sound just like my brother. And like, love my brother, but I don't want to sound like him. So I'm over it now because I've been forced to listen to my own voice, plenty of times. But
yeah, your voice in your head is very different from your voice coming from an outside source also, which messes up. We all think we sound so funny. Oh, we must sound ridiculous on video and stuff. That's because you're hearing yourself. It's very different.
Exactly. We're actually we're in the exact worst position to hear our own voices, not only because our mouth is out here and our ears are back here, but we're also getting vibrations through the eustachian tubes. So we're hearing a very different type of resonance than other people. And that's why it's so shocking, because you think you know yourself, and then you hear what you sound like on a voice recording, and you're like, that is different. Or that's my brother.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get this back on track. Bob actually finally asked a good question. We've given us some amazing things. Yet we're here to talk about the book that you've written, The Presence Principle, Embodying Executive Presence to Lead with Impact, which you wrote with your partner, Alexa Chilcut, if I got her name correctly.
Yes.
Tell us about the book. What's in there? What are we going to learn? And then Bob's going to probably pick on something you said and want to dive deeper into it.
Alexa and I began teaching a course at the Carey Business School on executive presence for external clients. So we specifically had Fortune 200, Fortune 100 companies coming to us saying, we've got these people that we want to promote to leadership, but they just don't have the it quality. They don't have the it factor. They don't have executive presence yet. Can you work with them? Can you train them? And we started with a 2-day course, and there was a request for more time. So then we did a 3-day course, and the course started selling out. There are a couple of business schools that teach executive presence, but we are the only ones that do it 100% in person. So we ended up with people flying in from London, flying in from Lagos, flying in from California to take the class in person, so that they could get a chance to actually put into practice some of the things that we're talking about in a low stakes situation. And then at the end of the 3-day course, sometimes our participants would ask, okay, now what? What do I do now? And of course, it is great for everyone to have their own executive coach, and both Alexa and I do executive coaching. However, as I tell my students and I tell my clients, you're your own voice teacher, you're your own coach 6 days a week. You only get to see me once a week. So when I'm not there, I want you to have a toolbox of strategies that you can use to handle challenging situations. And I really like to focus on those impromptu, demanding, and even distracting situations where it becomes really hard to do the thing that you know to do. So we all know that you don't want to talk in a monotone when you get up in front of a group of people and start explaining the Q2 finances. But if you're up there and you're a little nervous, your brain might go into fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. And if you're frozen and you don't have a pathway through, then your voice is going to drop down into that one sphere and bore everybody to tears. Or The opposite is you might start grasping for words and start just going into a whole lot of filler words. So yeah, right, yeah, you know what I mean?
100%.
The book is to provide strategies in order to handle those situations. And it's very much so designed like Bible study, wherein you go back to it again and again and again. You leave with a thought, you let that matriculate, you let that percolate, and then you come back and look at it again and see how it applies to the different situations in your life. I was just talking to one of our people here that work at Johns Hopkins University in admissions. And she was saying now they're expecting our current students to have 13 different jobs over the course of their career.
Wow.
My dad, my mom, they went in to the one job and they retired after 30, 35 years. But the climate looks so different now. How you present yourself in one arena might be perfect. But if you pivot to a different arena, that needs to have some kind of recalibration. And you need some tool to help you do that so that you can come across professionally. And that's exactly what this book is designed to do.
I'm curious if one of the strategies is lying to yourself. Chad, I say that only because the very first time I ever went on a stage in front of a large audience, I ummed and awed through the first half of the day.
Yeah.
And Chad will know, Ben, our business partner, grabbed me like at lunch and was like, if you friggin' say or ah one more time, and he's like, why are you doing this? You know, and I'm like, I'm nervous. And he's like, you need to be reminded, like, you know this better than anybody else sitting out in the room. And so like the second half of the day, I went back mostly, I mean, I joke lying to myself. I probably did know the content I was, delivering better than everybody sitting in the seats. But like, that was the thought going through my head is I know this. And so I joke I was lying to myself. I was more like,
Carl,
up or something.
It's a natural thing, though, that has to be taught and trained out. Because I have seen a friend of mine, I won't throw his name out there, I won't throw him under the bus, but a friend of mine who's presented on material that was levels above everybody else. And at the end of the day, he came back to me and he said, you're a speaker. How'd I do? And I held up my piece of paper and said, you said right 164 times. And he was like, no, I didn't. I was like, trust me. Right. And it's a thing we all do, that our brain will find those fillers if we don't have that executive presence. That's one of the pieces of it, correct?
Absolutely. So I want to talk about how I discovered that I was using filler words all the time. I was living in Germany, working at the Opera House. Now, I ended up with an assignment in Leipzig, which is the former East. So if you're and this was a while ago, this was about 15, 20 years ago. So if you're imagining...
The wall has come down before that, right? The wall's already
down. It's like 1989.
Physically.
Okay.
But metaphorically, most of my colleagues had been born behind the Iron Curtain and had grown up behind the Iron Curtain.
Okay.
And I was in the dressing room, Garderobe, and I was just tying a tie, and everybody stops and starts staring at me. And I'm like, what's going on? And they said, how do you know how to do that? And I said, oh, my dad taught me. And they said, oh, we never learned because that was the sign of the oppressor, the tie. So none of them knew how to tie a tie. So yes, the wall had come down, but the wall was still up for a lot of my colleagues. And it was very, I will say, monocultural in the space that I was. Most people were born in and around like 20 miles from that opera house. And I was very proud of myself for speaking very good German. I had a little notebook. Whenever there's a word that I didn't know, I wrote it down. I went to the library. I rented DVDs. I watched them. If there was a word I didn't know, I wrote it down. I had a book called Improve Your German. I went through that book, and it was really important to me to speak good German. And I was, except that my colleagues would imitate me and they would talk in German and they would say, Karl, ich bin der einzige Mann, an dem du richtest, you know? Und ich habe gedacht, dass du ein sehr talentierter Sänger bist, you know? And they thought it was so hilarious that I ended every sentence with good German with, you know. And I was like, I'll be damned. So that was the first time. We need other people to be that mirror for us and to show us those things. So, Bob, you mentioned lying to yourself. In the literature and in the research, they call it self-talk.
Yeah.
And a lot of the research that has been done around this, around high-performing individuals, is from the sports field, because there's a lot of money put into helping these young athletes or old athletes do well in high-pressure situation, and surfacing that inner narrative and challenging that inner narrative if it is a negative narrative, and changing that inner narrative is what self-talk is all about. So now we have the science around it, but just think, most ancient traditions had some kind of mantra or some kind of prayer or some type of saying that they would encourage people to repeat, which is an ancient way of doing what we are now talking about with self-talk in the modern sphere.
It's fascinating.
Carl, talk to me about executive presence. I love that I don't know that I've actually heard that term used like that before. I think that's a fantastic term. It's not just standing up on the stage, being able to speak in front of your group that you're leading. There's so much more to it. There's got to be the empathy in there. There's got to be the developing relationships, the leading of people. Break down the different aspects that become executive presence that we could give ourselves scores in to figure out, do we have a high executive presence?
In the knowledge economy, you have to collaborate. None of us can do our jobs alone. So executive presence is that ability to engage, inspire, and move people to act on your behalf. We've all worked for people who we had no respect for, who we didn't think had integrity, and then we were less likely to follow through with anything that they wanted. We've also had people that we followed that were great bosses, that were good people, that listened to us when we spoke and made us feel heard, and that led with integrity. And those are people who we want to follow. Those are the jobs that we don't want to leave. And so executive presence is the distillation of that quality, the ability to inspire people, to move them to act, to encourage them along, and to get buy-in from multiple stakeholders.
So I was asking the question, and while I asked it, I was thinking, is there a test? Like, there's all these personality profile tests that is there an executive presence test that I can take that tells me I'm good in front of the group, but I'm bad at this part of being an executive and help me grow?
So the best test is, do people respond to you in the way you would like them to? And the reason there's no one test is because there's no one people. It really is determined on who you are working with and in what situation and in what arena.
Okay.
That makes sense. Because I kind of roll it through my head. I'm like, yeah, like sometimes because I don't know, executive presence is a very corporate term. And I think a lot of us go to like, oh, it's the CEO, it's the CFO, but like, I don't know. Like,
you need it on your kids' basketball team.
I was just going to say, Chad, I watched, there's a whole bevy of coaches in this program. And like, I specifically have my kid on one of these teams because of the presence of that coach. We could call it executive, we could call it coaching presence, whatever it is. But like, he has a certain presence that is exactly what I want. Right. And it gets the kids into action, to your point. Like, they follow him. I don't know if Kelly would be an awesome CEO at a 300 person company. I don't know. Maybe he would, maybe he wouldn't. It's a totally different audience.
So his score would change, is what you're saying, Carl, because to the kids, the other parents and kids, he's great. Yet if we put him on Microsoft as a company, He might fail out and run crying before the day was over.
Right. And we don't want to try to be Bill Gates if we're going to run Microsoft, because that position is already taken. You want to be your best self, because we know when someone is speaking from the heart, when they're being authentic. And we hate to see someone come from a place of inauthenticity and try to lead us as well.
So Cook not attempting to just be Steve Jobs when he took over.
Exactly.
I got a question. So as you work with, you guys wrote the book on this, you individually coach people, organizations bring you guys in, and people come and do the 3-day seminar. What's one of the easier things to impact? Like, as I come and I let's say I was doing your 3-day course, what's something that's generally much easier for people to adapt that leads them to more executive presence? And then what's something that's really hard?
The easiest thing is to harness the power of the pause. We live in a very fast-paced society, and sometimes it feels that I've got so much information I want to get out there, and I want to make sure that nobody interrupts me so that I can get everything out that I know. So I'm just going to keep talking, and I'm going to talk as fast as I can so that I can prove that I'm really, really good at this thing.
We've had some guests that are that way. You are not Carl. You're
not. Like, it's actually like, I've taken mental note. You end your answer and you pause.
Yeah.
And he has stored enough answers that he's giving us the information, but he's not saying, I'm going to talk for the whole 40-minute podcast on this one point you asked. Where some of our guests, Bob, we're both sitting here looking at each other like, do we need to be here?
But it's like, it's
so how do I do it?
Other people do it enough, Carl, that your intentional pauses, like, I already 3 times, I think, took note, like, oh, he like ended that thing. Like, he handed it back to us, which is not common.
How do we fix it? Because you're right. I know so much. I want to get it out. I'm worried if I take a breath, you're going to jump in. So I'll use filler words or I'll just keep rolling. Yeah. How do we take a lesson from you today that helps everyone listening to this improve their pause?
It is so basic, Chad. And it's as simple as taking a breath. If you are inhaling, you cannot be speaking at the same time. And if you are inhaling, you're providing your body with very important chemicals that it needs in order to keep functioning. So you're doing good for yourself. You're doing good for the conversation simply by taking a good breath.
Bob, I'm over here attempting to inhale and talk at the same time.
I know you are. I know you are. Every single person who's ever listened to the podcast 5 times knows that's what you're doing right now. No, we can see you, obviously, but everybody else knows.
Now, there is a style of singing called Tibetan throat singing, where in the mountains of the Himalayas, they figured out how to actually vocalize on the inhalation as well. But that is a specialized practice that these monks have been training for their entire lives to do.
Sign me up. I need to do it.
I think my new favorite artist, Harry Mack, might have figured this out, because that guy just almost seems like he never takes a breath. He just freestyle raps forever and ever and ever, but he's clearly breathing. He's just figured it out, right? That's like opera singing. Like, you guys are, man, some of you guys, you're like, what?
Is there a
breathe? Like, but you figured out how to do it, right? And
yeah.
Carl, is there do you guys train saying, look, 10 seconds, you're done, take a breath? Or is it just
talk? You're talking like in the opera world, Chad?
No, I'm talking in the executive presence.
Should we
make sure I'm doing the pause? Is there something that says, if you've been talking more than 10 seconds, you need a breath, stop and take it? That forces the pause. Is it?
Yeah, Chad, nothing that prescriptive. 2 of the techniques that I use when I'm coaching clients, the first one is to think about the difference between your favorite book. What's your favorite book?
The Count of Monte Cristo.
Okay. And think about, that's Alexander Dumas, right?
Oui.
You know, there's a really great book about his father. It's called The Black Count, and 10 out of 10. You got to read it.
Okay.
Yeah, anyway, so think about the movie that they made of the Count of Monte Cristo.
Yeah, none of them have been good.
Okay. So, great book. We'll say okay movie.
Sure.
Think about all the parts that got left out from the book to make the movie.
Right.
And it's still a satisfying movie. Maybe not to you in particular, but some studio Hollywood executive in their wisdom and with their billions of dollars said, this is good enough to print.
Yep.
And getting comfortable with the fact that there is something that you have to cut out. There's some things that you can't say. I think that is the learning curve. And knowing that even if I have more to say, I can pause here and breathe, and I can leave it out. The other thing I like to talk about is just speaking with the amount of air you have in your lungs. And when you run out of air, stopping.
I've got real good diaphragm. I have a theatrical background. That's why I can talk as much as I can, because I can keep that breath moving, project into the back room. I could be a problem for your pause lesson.
Bring it on. Bring it on, Chad.
He said, what I heard is, give me 3 days, I will break you.
Yes, I think I heard that as well with reach out to me when this webinar is.
Carl, what's something that's really hard? Like, what's something that just, man,
I'm going to go back to it again and again in the book.
Because I'm sure there's lots of very niche-y type things. And you're like, oh, you got that problem? Good luck. But like, what's something that comes up, more frequently that's hard to overcome?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is when people just don't like you. I was working with a client, and he's actually based in Germany, and he moved to a new place, started at a new company, and was trying to be friendly with everybody. And this is one of those people that is just a joy to be around, just kind, considerate, compassionate, warm. And there was someone else that he was supposed to work with, and this other colleague was like, you know what? I don't like you. I don't want to work with you. And my client was just kind of heartbroken, and he was saying, Carl, what do I do? How can I convince this person that I'm a good guy? I want them to work with me. I can do these hard things, and we can do them together. And for that, I fall back on my theatrical training as an improviser, which is yes and. Sometimes it's hard to hear when we have to yes and something that we don't like. So the offer from this colleague was saying, let's not work together. Let's not talk when we see each other. And the yes and, you have to affirm this is not a relationship that can be built upon, at least right now. And I can find other avenues to put my focus and my energy. We all want to be liked. We all want to be loved. We all want to be that great boss. And sometimes that is not the offer that's on the table from the people that we're working with. We have to look and see what they're actually offering and then go from there. And if it's nothing, then nothing from nothing leaves nothing.
Smart. All right, we are talking with Carl DuPont, author of The Presence Principle, Embodying Executive Presence.
Hold on. It's weird when you do it without the background. Like, I feel like I need to explain that before we got on. Chad always asks people, like, hey, am I pronouncing it right? And Carl, you said, yes, in the US you are, but then you went and you showed us a couple languages. You said, hey, over here, we do it this way. So, because otherwise it feels a little bit mocking, Chad, coming from me. Like, I feel like everybody needs to know
I'm saying it with the French that it's supposed to be said with.
I get it, but like, you're overdoing it a little bit. And without the context, I think it's weird. So just,
here's what's funny. So my whole family says DuPont, right? Everybody was born here for generations. So we say DuPont. When I moved to Europe and I would say DuPont, people would just stare at me. They wouldn't know how to spell it. Because the is not really a vowel. So when I would start saying Dupont, all of a sudden they knew exactly what to write because everybody in the continent has an ear for the French. And I thought that was hilarious. And it made my life easier by just switching to Dupont.
And it makes you just sound fancier.
Hello.
When you call a restaurant to make a reservation and say DuPont, if you say DuPont, right, they're putting you down for 4 and you're higher on that list. You know it.
Exactly. Yes. I get every reservation I ever call. Who calls in for a reservation now?
I don't know. They don't do that anymore, do they? I'll just go to open.
My favorite restaurant, my wife's favorite Thai restaurant here in Bellevue, Washington, does not do online reservations. I think it's the most insane thing ever. I'm like, wow, you guys are like a throwback to the 80s. This is amazing. It's
and
also
I
really
call
good food,
restaurants and then they tell me to go to their website. I still haven't caught up with that one yet.
He lives in a retirement community, Carl, so that might explain it.
I still haven't caught that one. All right. So, Carl, before we get to the end, before we wrap this conversation up, if somebody is listening to this, they want to hear more, they want to follow you, they want to get more inspiration or lessons from you, what is the best way for our audience to connect with you moving forward from the episode other than just going to Amazon and finding the book?
Yes, I am on LinkedIn. And if you find me on LinkedIn, Carl DuPont, DMA is the Doctorate of Musical Arts, and you send me a DM, I'll send you a free PDF, which just gives you some tips, tricks, and tactics for how to improve your vocal use. So I encourage everyone to reach out to me through LinkedIn, Carl DuPont, or DuPont.
Thank you.
And you can also find out more about the book and some of the workshops that we do and the executive coaching through the website for the book, which is thepresenceprinciple.com.
Perfect. Bob's doing it right now. He's on LinkedIn. I'm paying attention. So just so we understand, Bob, that's probably in the executive presence, paying attention and being present while you're on LinkedIn, searching him and connecting with him. All right. Carl, here's the thing. This is how we've been wrapping it lately. I've shifted to this. I like this at the end here. I'm going to put you on the clock for 1 minute.
Okay.
You can't use more. You can cut early and use your pause. Yet don't go longer than a minute. It may be something we've talked about. It may be something that's on your heart that we have not talked about that you just don't even know the reason, yet you're going to share it. It may be something you just want to reiterate that we talked about. 1 minute. Close it up for our audience.
We can do hard things. When we think about executive presence and how we show up in the world, there are lots of challenges. Sometimes that starts even before we get out of bed. And we are a species that has survived because of our adaptability and because of our agility, because of our creativity. And it gets so easy to forget about those things, forget we have the ability to change and to grow, but it is a part of our DNA, quite literally, and a part of our neurons. The quality is called neuroplasticity. So I encourage everyone to realize the resources that they already have inside, the ways that they've already changed, the ways that they've already grown, and to harness that for future challenges.
Folks, check out thepresenceprinciple.com. Check the book out. Check Carl out on LinkedIn.
So good. This was such a great call. Carl, thanks for sharing your time with us, man. It was amazing.
It absolutely was. So glad we had the time to share with you today. Audience, share this one. This is one someone you know needs to listen to. And until our next episode, as always, do good.